Live stream as well. Starting to stream. Morning, everybody. This is episodes 219. And yeah, we'll be starting shortly. Chill and his bus were running late again, which is why we're a little bit later than usual. I think we should actually change the start time to later to avoid this issue.
Raid time?
Like we did with our raid time, yeah. Tweeting out. Okay, so just the usual disclaimer. It's the raw version of the show with all the fubs, etc. left intact because I don't edit video. I leave that for people who know what they're doing. So I just do audio, it's easier. And, yeah, so this stuff, if you happen to watch the video, sorry, we like swear and shit, so. But it's all cleaned up in the real version. Alright, guest today, familiar faces, and she'll introduce everyone. Anything you want to cover before we start? And I'm going to be asking about Audacity in just a minute. Just the one tip of the week, by the way.
Okay. I've got Audacity rolling, I've got my microphone set, and the level of the studio thing set. And you're doing the streaming. It's all good, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have Twitch, so I'm not going to be looking at the chat room. So if anybody says anything in the chat room that's relevant to what we're talking about, somebody let me know.
Okay.
Oh. That's data mined. I can't touch that.
Oh, so
Oh, it was
mastery
alive.
mastery is not a data mined thing, right?
Correct. So we're going to talk about that.
But crit surge is.
Yes.
Crit surge
That
is data mined.
Yep.
Can-
all that.
When we talk about the mastery, can we say that there are rumors that crit and surge are being consolidated?
Nope.
Okay. I have an issue with their lack of communication, and I think it's good with things like story. Is I want it to be a surprise, and they shouldn't talk about it. And they've made this big push of all we're going to do is story, and then all of a sudden the data mined information comes out, and they're changing a bunch of shit behind the scenes, and they're not talking about it. So,
Yeah.
at what point are they going to talk about it? There's only, roughly
Right.
2 months until it's going to come out.
Yeah, I think a lot of that
that is the
discussion on the GGC covered that pretty well. Speaking to marketing and leaking, or putting out
Outsourcing of
information.
marketing.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, they sort of need two channels. Like, I get that there is a channel for the outsiders to bring
should
people
be
into the game and sort
there's
of the
a-
hype machine.
There's an opportunity to talk about this as part of the show, so...
Yeah,
When
that's
we bring
basically
up
what
the-
they said in
well,
the
that's-
GGC.
well,
Did you
that's
listen to the GGC, Turk?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
plowed through it right before we started. So.
Oh, minor mention, tertiary stat was referenced as going away, and he's right, of course, was one of the many things that came out of Gamescom. So
Oh, wait.
you could speculate, sure. Just
Wait,
say
they said
merged.
tertiary
Yes.
stat or all tertiary stats?
I think A. It's all right. We'll
Yeah,
get
I
there.
didn't remember that specific. Okay, let's go.
Okay, because if all tertiary stats are going away and they're consolidating all the primary stats, there's really not going to be gearing anymore at all.
No. All right. Is everybody mastery? Let's hope we still have set up bonuses that don't magically change class by class.
Oh my god.
Otherwise, what the fuck?
I mean, at this point, I'd almost rather just have that. If everything else is going to be the same, let's just get it over with, and then I can use one set of gear for all my characters.
A tertiary
Except for the
stat, Minor
tanks.
confirms. Okay. Thank you, Minor. All right. Chill is recording.
Mm-hmm.
You're in studio mode.
Yep.
Okay. Kuzo, you're recording.
Sure. Now I'm recording.
All right. Turg.
Yeah, I am recording.
All right. Let's make this happen.
All right, going in 5.
Hi, and welcome to the OotiniCast, the podcast that is perfectly acceptable alternative in extreme circumstances. This is episode 219, being recorded on Wednesday, August 12th, 2015. I'm your host, Chill, with our producer and co-host, Tio. Hi, Tio.
Hey, guys.
And our guests today are Turg and Kuze. So, Turg, what you been up to?
I have actually been doing things other than raiding, surprisingly. I'm letting my subscription lapse, and that comes up near the end of this month. So I want to get characters leveled before that happens. So it's almost a catch-22 is the right word, but it's one of those things where I start leveling a character and then I go, oh yeah, this is why I like the game and this is why I was subscribed to the game. So then I'm tempted to keep subscribing. But it's not a matter of the money as much as it is sort of a principle thing. I think that if they're hoping that everybody's going to be a subscriber and they're looking at subscriber numbers, if they don't see a drop in subscriber numbers, they'll think that what they're doing is good. And, you know, at this point, I think that they are going to come out with raids and they are going to come out with PvP content. But say stuff gets delayed and Coffee comes out and, you know, maybe it goes a year before we get a raid and they don't see a drop in subscribers, they'll say, oh, wow, we didn't lose subscribers and we didn't have any raids, so maybe that's not something that's important. So I'm sort of trying to make a stand. When Coffee comes out, I'll subscribe for the month because I have to be able to get up to 65 to do the stuff we're going to do. But I'm trying to not support them not working on parts of the game that I like. So, but yes, I'm leveling my operative was the moral of the story, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. Last time I went through light side, and this time I'm going through dark side, which is more interesting. And I was really excited about there's some major changes where, you know, one way you get to face evil and one way you get to side with evil, that sort of thing. And so I actually got to side with evil, and I was really excited about that. I was a little let down when I betrayed one of my allies, and then I get back to base, and my ally got the same promotion they got on the light side choice. And I was like, well, that's a little weird. Why isn't that different? And that sort of gets back to my feeling that even with the really good stories, like the agent story, it still sort of shoehorns a lot of stuff in down the same path. And that's fine if you only have a light side and a dark side, and you're only doing that character twice because I did the sniper and then the operative. But if they expect people to do it, you know, 8 times or 16 times, it really needs to branch out more than even the existing really good stories did in Coffee. So I really hope that they're putting a lot of work into making it variable.
Supposedly they are.
Okay. Wonderful.
Right.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's true that in the 1 to 50 class stories, there's a lot of magician's choices where they make it seem like there's a choice, and you know, maybe for a little bit of the conversation there is a difference, but at the end of by the end of the conversation, everything's wrapped up like a sitcom. So, so yeah, they use a lot of magician's choices there, where they make you think you're making a big choice, but maybe you're really not. But it's a fun. Doesn't detract from the story too much, unless you, like I say, you're doing it like you're saying, you do it over and over again. So, all right, Kuze, how about your week?
Pretty good. I wanted to add to that. Swotor tweeted out a comment with the picture from Coffee saying, "Will you kneel?" And there's a few people that somewhat made the same comments, and I made the comment of, if I can side with the or if I can help destroy the galaxy, then yes. If I choose to say, I'll help destroy the galaxy, but it still turns out the same where I'm not, then no. You know, basically, if I'm going to make a choice to do something dirty, I want it to happen. Similar to what Turk's saying with the previous stories, where it kind of just flushes out in the same way. And they're boasting all this, it's going to make a difference when you make a decision. I want to destroy the galaxy if, you know, that's my choice. So I guess we'll see what happens when Coffee comes out. Anyways, rating, of course, and also back to Datacron. So I think I was at 131 last week. I'm down to 115 now. So somewhere 17 Datacrons, 16, 17 Datacrons, or whatever I've picked, or not Datacrons. I'll get to that later. About 15, 17 decos that I've picked up since last week. And they're the more difficult ones, things you have to run solo. I was able to run Colicoid war games solo. I figured out a way to do that, and I could do it on any character. There's two methods. There's one that's really cheesing the mechanics, which I haven't done, and then there's another way where you can just kind of get around some of the gated parts of the Flashpoint. And I managed to work my way around that and get to it.
Very nice.
And I unlocked Yavin a long time ago when it first came out. I unlocked everything, but I haven't decorated because I've been trying to get as many decos as I can. And finally, just last night, night before last, I started to focus on getting that all decorated. And that's pretty much been my... It's
what kind
really
of theme
good.
are you going for?
Everything. So a lot of statues everywhere because it's kind of fitting for the area. One of the little temples in the back is a bounty hunter hovel or whatever, where they have all their bounty hunter stuff in there since all that came out, and there's a lot of cool decos for that. And the other side's going to be the Jedi meditation type training area, and then a huge kind of like where the courtyard's at is going to be all similar to what I did on Arshada, is like a vendor area, kind of a place to buy stuff and whatnot, and it's coming together. I'm excited when I get to the cave to do some crazy stuff inside the cave, but I have to get there first. I got to get everything else done. Kind of working my way from the front to back.
All right, awesome. All right, Tio, how about your week?
Well, let's talk about raiding. So it's same old, same old. We cleared the usual 4 in record time, actually. Just blew through Sparky, Malafar, Bulo, and the Sword Squadron, the 2 walkers. And then it was on Underlurker again, and then it was bugging again. Bugs. So we're reaching a point where I don't know if it's we've reached a skill block or a patience block. I'm sure you can get through this.
Right.
People obviously have.
Yep.
As far as we know, we're doing everything right, and it's still screwing up occasionally on us. And maybe we're close enough to the skill cap that that's enough that we just can't push through it. Whatever, we've pretty much decided that we're going to back off on our rating. We're going to cut down to 1 day a week, either Thursday night or Friday night, and work on other content, either old stuff, if Turk's not with us, or if he is with us, we'll do something more progression-oriented, such as talk in Ravagers, and this week we're doing Colossal Monolith again, now that they fixed that bug where he wandered over to a point that effectively meant it was a wipe in the room. Now they fixed that bug, we're going to try it again, even though it's basically harder than it has ever been. So I'm sure that will be frustrating as hell, but at least it's new and fun, and probably works as intended. So we either get through it as we can, as it is, or we don't, and it's all fair.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that again.
Yep. Now, outside of that, I actually didn't play at all, because, well, more podcasting stuff, believe it or not. On my Sunday morning, we recorded the Galactic Gamers Coalition Episode 8. It was OotiniCast hosting again, Chill as the host, I was there as well. And we had a fine panel of people. It was a really good conversation, and I published it. Editing it more or less took the rest of my time until I published it yesterday morning. So that is out there in the wild as well. So, yep, I would highly recommend listening to that. Find out what all of the major podcasts are getting up to and their thoughts on what's happening.
Right.
So
and it does not appear on our feed. It appears on a separate feed for Galactic Gamers Coalition.
I'll link it anyway in the show notes for this episode. But yeah. Anyway, that's my week. Over to you, Chell.
All right. First, shout out to the chat room. Let's see. Airman Noir is here. Blacklock Swotor, Cianida, Dark Edge Gaming, Darth Brundlefly, Dekion, Dispel53, Fizze, Fionha, Hyperspace Beacon, Jockins, JP Chivalry, Kotfi, Lady Katayara, Liberty 11, Magic 518, Peleus. Hey, Peleus. He was one of them. Kuze has a presence here. Turg said that he was not able to get into it, so that's fine. S2, KCR, Skaterox, Sisquayetka, Sith Kitty, Swotor Miner, Trig PT, and Zamzam. The PvP are all here, so hello everyone. And let's see, what did I do? Other than operations and the GGC, got Chillbrand, my old main, up to 60 finally, via PvP on my stream, which was fun. Also did some Oricon along the way while I was waiting for things to pop. But I didn't turn them in until after I dinged 60, so it was really just war zones for that last level. I had enough comms from doing those war zones and a little bit previously. I never really seriously PvP'd on Chillbrand, but I did a few war zones along the way on her, just for laughs. And I had enough comms to get to 2018 basic gear, but no upgrades. Yeah, I also updated her utilities since she was now 60 and only doing war zones, and I like the results. It's a lot more survivability and some nice utility, so good stuff. And there are really some good talents in there. So I really wanted to get the improved slow, but I did not. I kept the other ones in favor of better survivability cooldowns. So I'm gonna try that out. Yeah, and I also briefly got on her mirror character, also recently level 60, Chill Echo, and started a little bit on her, but she didn't have as many comms, so she's not even to 2018 expertise yet. So, but I'm really liking the middle tree on those characters, so that's going to be a lot of fun. That's probably what I'm gonna. I don't think I'm going to level any more characters before the expansion. I'm just going to do some war zones and have fun with that. I'm thinking, yeah. So, yeah. All right, that'll get us on to the tip of the week, and we just have one this week. It's from Aldo of the Dark Sith Guild on the Harbinger. Tips for new people wanting to join a progression group. 1. You should run through Ravagers and Temple of Sacrifice on story mode with pugs or guildies as much as possible prior to joining a progression. This will help with set piece bonuses and experience and familiarity with the raids. 2. Know your class and your rotation. Whether you're tanking, you're healing, or DPS, you will need to be well acquainted with your class and its rotation. Practice goes much further than a dummy parse or healing a war zone. Run through as many operations as you can and maximizing the time you play the game rather than sitting on fleet.
And we would include flashpoints in that as well, because it's similar, not as difficult as an operation given the larger group, but still the mechanics are often similar, and it's good practice.
That makes sense, yes. And also when Aldo is talking about rotations, most classes don't have a hard rotation. There's a lot of priorities and stuff like that, but I'm sure he's just using that in the general sense of knowing what abilities tend to follow other abilities and what procs you need to look for and so on. 3. Make sure you're mostly geared in 192 set bonus pieces, if at all possible. As a general rule, a progression raid group has full intentions on beginning their progression ASAP, so being mostly geared in set bonus pieces makes it easier for the group to try out the hard mode content sooner rather than later. And 4. Read guides.
And the only place to get those set bonuses is in operations. Thus, he also already mentioned in point 1 doing story modes. So that's why one of the key reasons to do them, you should get your 6-piece bonus, if at all possible, by running through it on story mode first. Yes, just because there's, alt-com gear that's the equivalent level, but it doesn't have set bonuses, so it's not quite the same. And the itemization is terrible in terms of stats. More on that later. Okay, and finally 4th, read guides on the fights. You are going into a serious part of the game with serious people manning the teams. You don't want to be the reason the team keeps wiping on a mechanic. Read guides on the boss your team is going to clear this week, so you can be acquainted with the mechanics. Best of luck, Raiders. So, by non-random allotment, the winner is, of course, Aldo. And so, Aldo is winner of an M8-3R or Tonfon pet code, courtesy of BioWare, and a new OotiniCast provided cartel market pack from the latest shipment. If you'd like a chance to win the same, please send your tips to OotiniCast@gmail.com by next Tuesday. And that will bring us to the holo feed. Tio? I will just mention that our Torn Fawn nest was almost empty. We only just had the one Torn Fawn left. It was getting kind of lonely. But Eric Musco kindly supplied me with another 15 or so. So plenty of Torn Fawns to give away. So thank you, Eric.
So even now, they're still very popular, huh?
I guess we never really talk about this, but in terms of the prizes, I always give people the choice in M8-3R or a Torn Fawn, and the Torn Fawns are definitely far more popular.
The winner.
Yeah.
Well, we have been getting free droids whenever we have May the 4th and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of other droid options in the Tauntaun's, I guess, maybe aren't as common.
Exactly. I already said the same
I'd
thing.
agree.
Droids are hardly unique, whereas the Taunfauns are cute. Anyway. Alright, on to the news. Now, we do have a mountain of information from Gamescom, from the Q&A and some interviews with James Olin. So we'll get to that for sure. Black Cat just went by. If the Black Cat goes by again, it means they changed something. Matrix reference? Yeah, anyway.
I got it.
All right.
Deja vu.
Firstly, EA quarterly report. You'll remember I mentioned the earnings call in brief, where they didn't actually talk much about Star Wars, the Old Republic at all,
Right.
just saying it's part of the big Star Wars thing. They have published their Form 10Q quarterly report, and the only mention that we have, and it's actually positive compared to the last couple of quarters. Previously, they've said they've actually lost a bit of revenue from SWTOR. This time, they said the amount of money they made for live services was about the same, and that was primarily driven by FIFA, Madden Ultimate Team, and Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Oh.
And it was partially, and they were going to say the increase was partially offset by a decrease from other games, Titanfall, Battlefield 4, and The Simpsons tapped out. So, but not SWTOR, which is what they've mentioned previously. So it's holding steady, making
Very nice.
money. That's a good
Okay.
Well, FIFA's always up there in the top. Maybe they should let us kick the hut ball. Sorry, you could edit that out.
No, that's funny. All right, now a couple of random tidbits from the forums. It's been very quiet while both Eric Musco and Tay Watson were in Germany for Gamescom, but we did have a couple of posts of interest. Firstly, talking about data mine material. And there was a post from Eric Musco reminding everyone that referencing anything data mined or about data mining on the official forums is strictly prohibited. The threads will be banned, or the threads will be deleted, and
Right.
people who do it will probably be suspended or banned. So, yeah, don't, because, well, just on the subject of data mining, there's like two kinds of data mining in my mind. There's what Tor Community was doing in terms of replacing Tor Head, taking what's currently revealed in the game and building a big database around it. If it's already released material, like in the live game, and it's just out there, then that's okay.
Right.
Data mining the PTS, I have more of a problem with. I mean, it's everyone's free choice. If they're BioWare is obviously aware that once it's out in the wild, people will get their hands on it. I have more of a problem. Yeah, I just don't like it. I think it's broadcasting information which is in a form which is probably premature. This stuff will be changing, and our experience from being in closed betas previously is that they iterate very fast, and so a lot of the stuff that's probably going out now is not the final form in which it will be released in 2 months' time.
That's true.
The argument for it is that there's only 2 months to go, and they're really not saying anything about it.
Right.
But again, things are in flux. They have obviously got a plan to release all this stuff week by week. We will have enough time to make the appropriate decisions. They are telling us stuff in cantinas that will help shape the view that we have. But yeah, the data mine stuff it's just dangerous to take that as any kind of gospel. As interesting as it may be. But yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that?
No, I think you did touch on something that it is very tempting and very intriguing to sort of be, the first in the know and that sort of thing. So, yeah, there is a temptation there.
I normally try to avoid it because I'd like to try to stay away from spoilers if possible. If it's more of the nuts and bolts type aspect of the game, I kind of want to know. Basically, just from what was said in the GGC and what you just alluded to now, is it's 2 months away. We haven't seen anything from BioWare. They keep promising blog posts on the stuff, and still nothing. It would also be nice if there was a PTS that was gated, or you could not do story whatsoever. And hopefully they'll do that towards closer to the launch date, that we can test all the stuff and see what's in the game and flesh it out. I'm a little worried that they're changing so much that they're not thinking of everything, because as you said just previously, that being in closed betas, I mean, they forget to properly put names, or they'll have gear set bonuses switched around, or they'll have, you know, a piece of gear in one area that's supposed to be in another, and just little things like that that the closed beta and other PTS help, you know, fix before it goes live. And if we're just leaving it up to them, I don't have a good feeling about it.
Yeah. But again, is data mining the answer? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I could live without, but if it's there, I might as well take a peek. As long as it's not spoiling anything.
Other games do have far longer beta periods, and they do tend to have open betas. If given the story-specific nature of Kotfi and the fact they probably don't want to spoil anything, they probably won't have an open beta, as Miner may have just suggested, and he's probably right. I mean, we don't know for sure, but it's probably likely.
And this isn't the only game. I mean, data mining has been going on in every MMO for the longest, so it's nothing new.
It's true. It's true. And I know Blizzard, for example, with World of Warcraft, originally did try to suppress it, but then they eventually embraced it and opened up their API and everything else. And it's just part of what they do. So, but SWTOR has the big problem of LucasArts and copyright and all that kind of thing. It's an excuse, maybe, but it's just a legal hurdle, which I get the impression just makes life hard. And so it's just easier not to touch it.
Right. But at least they're not taking, you know, further actions other than on their own sites. They've reached out a little bit in the past to try to do some things, but, you know, they retracted from that, I think, and they just kind of let it go on the outside. But if it's on their forums and everything, they, see them in the background. If it's on their forums, they shut it down. And they have the right to, and they should, you know, because they don't want to be promoting that type of stuff, and just leave it out for the community to do.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. SWTOR.com's getting a bit of a facelift. Well, in the form of basically deleting a whole bunch of stuff which is way out of date, such as the Elder Game Guide, the New Player Guide, the Game Manual, the events stuff, the Galaxy Map, which is a bit of a shame. The wallpapers is now on Facebook. Podcasts, well, all two of them, the official podcasts that they did. So anyway, they'll probably add some more stuff later. But
it's been a while since I've been in any of those pages. So I remember, you know, before the game launched, going through the Galaxy Map and checking it all out, and it was really cool. But
if you don't keep it up to date, what's the point?
What's the point, exactly?
Yeah. All right. Next, we have a couple of interviews that were done with James Olin at Gamescom. The first was with Christiane Imdahl, and there's both a video, which I'll link to, and a transcript. So, there's a lot of stuff we already knew, but I thought it'd be just worth quickly going over. For example, talking about James Olin saying, the roots of BioWare is storytelling, and SWTOR has always put storytelling at the forefront. The dream of SWTOR was to create the endless BioWare story set in the Star Wars universe. Over the years, as a team, they've been developing the tools, really focusing themselves. Shadow of Revan was a much more story-focused, and the most story-focused they've done so far, and now we've got Coffee is the best storytelling they've ever done in SWTOR. It really is a love letter to fans of KOTOR and Mass Effect, people who love that style of gameplay in the Old Republic universe. Right, so basically consistent with everything they've been saying. They are building a story game here. So, in Kotfi at least. More about cinematic storytelling. Storytelling where you're the hero, capital H, in an epic saga struggling against a great evil. Pretty classic stuff, really. Stories about storytelling where you make choices and those choices impact how the story unfolds. We talked about that already. Only so much you can do in an MMO, but they're going to try and do more than they have done. They talked about the episodic content and how they're kind of inspired, firstly, by the whole Star Wars saga with the multiple movies telling a story over time. So that's sort of why they want to do episodes, but it's more like the TV episodic stuff, where they're telling it in a big arc over time with individual episodes.
Yeah,
And
they
he's-
used HBO and Netflix as examples, and yeah, Netflix is a massive success, but they release things as seasons, and then people binge through the season, and then you don't get another season for another year.
Yep.
So I don't know that they're drawing the right parallel in this case. I get what they're saying, that they feel the alternative is each time they come out with a new story, then you pay for it piecemeal rather than a subscription. And I think that they felt that sounds like they're nickel and diming people, so they'd rather people just subscribe, and then it just keeps coming as a free thing, so you don't ever have to think about the money. And a lot of people, you just have a subscription and you let it run, and people forget that they even have that. It comes automatically out of their bank account.
Yeah, and that's probably what they're relying on to some extent. Just forgetting about that. But again,
Unless
it's
you-
just
Which is
keep
why I'm
things simple.
taking a stand.
Unless you cancel your card, like
Unsubscribe now. Unsubscribe now.
Yes. No. Alright, so you also talked about the free for subs model, which basically forces you to subscribe to actually get the new content with Kofi. And he says, that wasn't entirely for altruistic reasons. Obviously, they're a business. The main reason they want to do that, the game, it comes to our inspiration, right? Like when you look at TV series, an episodic series, you want the audience to be enjoying the most recent episode together. But as Turk just pointed out, that never happens anymore because it's all online, on demand, and people will buy the seasons and binge through them.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a little bit 1980s, but you get what they're going for. Alright, now we had another interview with Gareth Hammer on MMORPG.com. This was a written one. So again, a lot of repeated stuff. But we did get a few more tidbits. For example, the time, the 5 years between the end of Shadow of Revan, the whole Carbonite thing, and the events as they unfold in Kotfi is kind of inspired by the gap between episodes 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6, which happen to be 20 years, but let's not quibble, there's just a gap. But, as he says, the player is that figure that bridges both gaps. He's almost like an Obi-Wan, except he's an Obi-Wan that doesn't die. Spoiler for Star Wars. Yeah, alright, what else did he say? Went on about TV series again. He says, not a weekly TV series, because we just don't have the ability to produce a new episode every week, but we would love to do a monthly cadence. Now, I can't really promise that, because I'll be killed, but that's where our goal is. So, yeah. Whenever we've had a cadence that's regular and expected, and that fans can trust in, that's been very successful for us, and that's what we want to do.
what?
Da-da-da.
Can you read that
I
again?
don't-
What did you say?
They want to continue the story each month. They want to be on a monthly cadence.
You
And-
know, what did they say? It's been successful when they've promised.
That's
Cadence in the
regular and
past?
expected. I don't know what he's alluding
They're
to there.
they're not.
I don't know
claiming
what he's
that they've
talking about.
Been successful at maintaining their cadence. They're saying whenever they've had a high cadence, people have been happier. And yes, that's true. I think that the reason they want stuff to come out monthly is because subscriptions are monthly, and
Well,
any
of
more
course.
than that isn't going to motivate people to subscribe if you have something midway through your subscription.
Right.
Where's
But
that
if you
at?
get less than a month, then that's when at least some people will start to turn it off.
Right.
I thought they were, yeah. I'm looking for it in the notes. I thought they were referring to the that 6-week cadence that they promised, and they were on time every time, and everything was great.
They never
Back in my
promised
day.
6 weeks. It was 7 to 8. It ended up as whatever. So it was always 8. Then it was 9
I don't think,
when they
think
changed
that
it.
they were bragging about their history as much as saying we know that people want stuff consistently, and so
Well,
that's what we're going
that's-
to shoot for.
yeah.
But no
Yeah,
promises.
Now, they go on to say they've been focusing a lot on improving the tools and processes for our cinematic designers. Bottom line is that the cutscenes are going to be amazing, and from what we've seen, they are. So that part of it will be absolutely 100% fantastic.
So when I read this, I picture Musco wearing one of those black suits with all the little ping pong balls on it, and they're going to have him act out all the different characters, and then that'll
Okay.
speed up the animation process. They can
He's
pump
gonna
things
be-
out really quick.
He'll
Well,
become
given
their Andy
Muscat probably
Serkis.
slowing down the animation, but yeah. Yeah, sure. No, I wonder. It's all about panning cameras and zooms and close-ups and all this other stuff. Yeah, so they've got great tools, great cutscenes. What else? What if you had an epic Bioware story? A Knights of the Old Republic, you could say, like in the Old Republic universe, where it's just focused on telling an epic story where the player was the hero, and you got great choices, and everything you love about choices and cinematic storytelling was there. It'd be a single-player RPG, I think. So, anyway.
Yes, so.
If you have multiple characters, pretty sure you're going to want to play through Knights of the Old Fallen Empire multiple times, just to see how it all rolls out depending on your choice. Oh, well, I guess we'll see. If they have really varied it up as far as those choices goes, then yeah, there's a bit of replayability there. Companions, yeah, well, we might be losing them, might be getting them back, whatever. We'll talk about that more later.
Well, yeah, the one thing that I liked that they said about the companions is in the past they were afraid to take away people's companions because they needed them for the role that they served. And it sounds like they're going to redo the companions so that you can use whatever companion you like the personality of, and they'll all sort of be able to fill whatever role, which means that they won't be afraid in the story of killing off companions or taking away companions.
Right.
Because I did think it was really cool in the original stories when you lose a companion for a while. And it really does feel like a significant loss. You look and I can't send them out on missions. I can't go with them. I can't use them in combat. And you really do want to work and do whatever it takes to get them back. And, that was only a temporary thing. And I think that they can sort of draw that out more, and that would be compelling storytelling.
Well, now, as far as why they've gone down this route of story, apparently it wasn't by accident. It's the result of regular, meaningful involvement with the community. There's two ways that they give input, the community that is. There's a communication, obviously, either from the forums or from the community events, but then there's also the communication that we get from metrics that we gather on playstyle. And everything else, both of them really pointed to one thing, which is that story is a central theme and the best part of Star Wars The Old Republic. Is what our fans wanted. If we could give them an endless, epic Star Wars story, they would be happy campers for the rest of their lives. So, if you're wondering why we've got story, just look in the mirror. Apparently.
No, you just look in BioWare's mirror. We've said it time and time again. We were forced down a path of story. The game is built around story. Of course you're going to do it. Double X, I guarantee you, if there's no such thing as 12 times XP, their metrics would have been swayed, way more to the other side than to story. Of course I'm going to run through story and class missions as much as I possibly can. I had one character at max level before 12x XP came out, or two, and after that I had, 8 or 9. Because I wanted to take advantage of I'm a gamer, I want to take advantage of what systems are in the game that I'm going to, get the most benefit from.
Right.
So I don't know. I still don't get it. I mean, I do agree that they do a fantastic job with story, and it's fun to play through, but their metrics thing kills me. I don't get it.
It would be a really interesting experiment if they did something where for 4 months they had a leveling PvP. PvP gives you 50 times XP, and see if all of a sudden everybody's just doing PvP instead. If people are really just doing whatever is the path of least resistance to level up their characters.
Yes.
That would be an excellent idea.
They may be leading the witness here, just a tad. Alright, now it does go on to say, very important, that's not to say that the other elements of the MMO aren't important. We have a big contingent of fans of PvP Warzones, we have a big contingent of fans who like the co-op, flashpoints and operations, and those are systems that we're going to support because they're a big part of an online world. So that's fantastic. So they haven't forgotten Warzones, they haven't forgotten ops and flashpoints. They're still there. But the story is really what our community would love to see a lot more of. They really are convinced of that, aren't they? So we're going to see a lot of story until they find out that doesn't work.
I think
Unless it does. So,
they're saying it's really what all people want, but I think it's more they know that that's what they can do. Is maybe they don't feel that they've done as good a job as some other MMOs at some of the other elements of the game, and so rather than try and compete head-to-head, they're embracing what they feel separates them from other games. So if somebody wants to do PvP, then they can go to another game, and if they like story, they have to come to SWTOR, because the other games just, they pale in comparison to the cinematic storytelling. Just the voice acting alone, going and playing to any other MMO, it's really hard after all that voice acting.
Yes.
It really spoils you. So they're embracing it.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
All right, let's wrap up the interview with him saying that they asked whether are there going to be any more expansions, and as in Kotfi style expansions, or they're just going to go season by season, whatever. And he says, yeah, of course, they want to do big things every year, even in 2016 if they possibly can. Well, of course. So, however they're going to do it, they're going to keep it coming. They're going to run this grand story experiment and just see what happens. And just to be clear, the story is fantastic. There is no doubt, in my mind at least, that the story will be awesome in every way. Just and phenomenal. But we need more. So, but well, yeah, they haven't forgotten the MMO bits, apparently.
The big question mark that's still hanging out there that I want an answer to is how are they handling leveling? Will we level through with that initial burst of story content? Because I do find it a lot harder to get myself to go out and do story stuff if it doesn't require leveling. I still haven't completed Ziost. So I started listening to SpoilerCast and then it stopped. I got like 5 minutes in, I was like, oh no, at some point I want to do it. It's just hard to get around to it, whereas when I feel like I'm making progress on my character leveling, I'm motivated and then I enjoy it while I'm doing it.
Well, on the Ziost front, it doesn't take long. You'll be done in an hour and a half, so it's not much of an investment.
Well, maybe I am almost through it then, because I think I spent like 45 minutes there. Although I was nearly done with some of the quests. I was going and trying to click the droids for something instead of going to little escort spots. I don't want to talk about it.
You should listen to read the quest text. Listen to them when they talk to you. They'll tell you everything you need to know.
Well, I hope that
everything else is voice acted, so I don't read anymore. I've lost the ability to read.
I just hope that the next expansion, if it comes out in 2016 or 17, that the acronym will allow us to convert it to donuts. That way we can have coffee and donuts, and then I'll be happy. So I'll be thinking of that one. What can be next? Donuts? Yeah, I can come up with something.
Yeah, I'm sure you can come up with an appropriate acronym there. Oh, great. Anyway, actually, there's one more interview with someone or other. How does the multiplayer aspect come in? Your buddies can come along with you and experience the story with you as a main hero and them as a companion. So anyway,
this I did not like. It's the same as that the way they make it an MMO is that your friend can come along and watch your story. When I'm doing my story, I really like to be doing my own thing. That's the one time when I don't like to be in Mumble. I just want to, focus on the story and be immersed. Yes. And when you have other people around, it sort of breaks the RP unless you're doing on an RP server and people are, really playing their character.
Sure.
So I can't see myself using that. And if they think that's going to make it a multiplayer game, I don't know how successful that's going to be. Maybe other people do. I don't know. What do you guys do?
Is there any difference to it?
It's exactly the Shadow of Revan. So if you go into any kind of story phase, you'll have to create your own. So you both go and do your own versions of it, and then you come out. So even though you could go in with them and watch your friend do it, you may as well just go in yourself and do your version of it.
Right. Not very efficient otherwise.
It's no different than the older stuff, right? You have the same option. Either you can go in with them and view their story and then help kill the boss.
Yep.
Yeah, class story. And then help kill the boss or whatever was there. Or you can, Yeah, it's no different to me.
It's not so much that it's different as the person asks questions about, what about multiplayer? And their answer is, well, story. So do the story multiplayer, and then you have a multiplayer.
But there's flashpoints. Although tacticals, you can do 10 to 65. Hard mode flashpoints, 50 to 65. Is that right?
Or you can do them solo.
Maybe not. Yep. The solo flashpoints, well, that is...
I don't think I've done a flashpoint in a year.
We talked about making them relevant in the Galactic Gamers Coalition, but if there's a reason to do them, people will do them. But if you're getting better gear from operations and story mode, why bother? They asked him, what about the base game leveling, 1 to 60? And they said they've taken the length it takes to finish a class story, which is currently 150 to 200 hours. Is it really? Even with 12 times XP?
I don't think with 12 times XP, but that's probably the original version.
When you do all the side stuff as well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they've taken it down to roughly the size of KOTOR. Now, I actually went out and checked. How long does it take people to actually do KOTOR? So KOTOR's main story, you can get it done in about 30-ish hours, 45 at the extreme. And if you do everything, you can probably stretch it out a bit to like between 36 hours, 62 hours at the max. So say roughly a quarter of the time it took. How are they going to do this? Don't know. Maybe they've just changed the XP requirements or up the XP you get from all the missions to make it quicker.
Right.
Since 12 times XP, just to be clear, is going away on 19 October. So they're going to have to do something with the new game. And they have made it very clear they are streamlining the 1 to 60 leveling somehow. And that's how much they've streamlined it by. How much of this? Yep.
Well, there are a lot of these are relatively short questions, and they actually do say some things that are interesting. So the next one is, what about flashpoints and operations? And they say, after completing the 9 chapters, you'll be able to enter scaled up 65 versions of the old stuff. Does that mean that you have to complete the story in order to be eligible to do the content? Because that's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like you just have to reach max level. You have to complete the story?
Seems unlikely. I suspect it is just reaching max level, and they're saying the 9 chapters are what you need to get to 65.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to, they could do PvP or anything else to level up and get to max level. Okay.
Of course, you do need to be subscribed, otherwise you won't unlock level 65. You'll be
Nobody does anything else but story to level anyways, right? That's what the metric says.
All right, now the Q&A. This was at the community cantinas. They had Q&As over 2 days. You can find the videos for both online, so you can actually watch it yourself. There was some interesting bits and pieces here. Actually, there's a ton of stuff. I'm not even sure we'll get through all of it today, but we'll touch as much as we can. They talked about the core vision of the game. It was originally some sort of post-apocalyptic version of it where things were a lot more primitive, etc. But that turned out not to be that much fun. And they had free spaceflight at one point, 80 AT-ATs and 80 SD, Scout Walkers and Walkers you could actually drive around.
And when I was skimming through, I caught that stuff, and I didn't realize that that was stuff that they had originally planned on doing and not stuff they're planning on doing in the future, and I got really excited momentarily. And I started to think about, like, all throughout Star Wars, there really is a lot of space, and sort of the transfer between space and vehicles, or I mean, space and ground. You know, all the main characters have their ship, and they go around and fly in their ship, and if they're not going to embrace Galactic Starfighter as a part of the story, I would like to see something in the story where you get to hop in a ship and fly around and do some sort of ship-based mission.
That'd be nice. Really unlikely, but it'd be nice.
Well, they already developed all the mechanics and the abilities. They have the entire system in place to do it.
Uh-huh. Well, some of them. All right. What about choices that matter globally or world-changing? We already kind of touched on this, but the answer is it's not a single-player game, so it's really, really hard for your decisions to really impact the world. And in Fallen Empire, you'll see decisions you made with companions and events that will have ramifications far down the road. But again, it's all kind of personal. It's not really world-shattering.
Well, so there are situations in the game already where you can't go back to a planet, so to you that planet is gone, or you could even have things visually, the planet visually looks different. Maybe things are on fire for you where they're not on fire for somebody who just got to that planet. So I would really like them to make an effort to make things feel different, even if they're limited.
Yeah. Except for the phase walls, they changed nothing in the world between what people can see. So, unless they add that technology, it's not going to happen. The world will look the same for everyone, regardless of where they are in the story or what choices they made. Now, different class content. One story, but with differences based on classes. Some classes may run into something, others will not. So it's the same old, same old. There will not be specific class stories, but there'll be variants in dialogue and maybe some small changes depending on your class. But nothing major. It'll basically be the one story. When you arrive in the new expansion, there will be a double warning. You cannot go back and finish any of your quests which are still open, especially class quests. But the sense that I'm getting is that when you start Coffee and you get this double warning, are you sure? Are you really sure? Are you sure that you're really sure? That once you accept that, everything is changed. Everything is locked off. This is the point where maybe your companions will disappear or whatever, because it's I don't know when the 5-year gap, that's a carbonite thing. So somehow it all changes. So this is where, for example, the companion system, which it seems they're changing significantly, I do wonder if that's the point where we sort of switch over from the old system, the 1 to 60 system, which they probably can't change too much, maybe, to whatever is new in Coffee, where all your companions have disappeared and you get different ones back or whatever. I don't know. They haven't said that.
Also, with Shadow of Revan, you have the terminal on your ship, and you go up, and once you start that, it says, warning, spoilers. It'll be something similar to that. The difference is, with that, it was a standalone thing that didn't impact things that happened before, so you could still go back and do stuff. So I think it'll be the same thing. There'll be a cutscene, and it'll show what happens, and then all of a sudden you'll be in Carbonite or whatever. But it'll delete your stuff. So the positive of it is that the Ilum mission chain is finally gone. McKeb, if you didn't finish it, that's finally gone. So it will clear out things that have been stuck there forever.
That's true.
But it does mean that I have to go back on anybody who I didn't finish stuff I wanted to finish on and get that done before it comes out.
Right.
Or at least before I started on that
like
character. I guess
companion
that's
talking
the other
and
option.
stuff. Yeah.
Because after that point, it really is done. You're done. You can't go back. Alright, so some stuff on companions and crafting. The question was asked, what about all the gear on your companions? What happens if you lose your companion? Apparently, if all the gear from companions that will die or disappear for a long time will return automatically in your inventory. So you do not have to strip your companions before Coffee.
That's cool.
You will get the gear back. Companions are being changed, so you can choose them based on their story aspect. That is, who you like, rather than what they can do ability-wise. That is, tank, DPS, or healer. More details on this later, but the general sense of this is you won't have, like on the Jedi Knight, you have Doc, who's your healer. Instead, you'll just have all of your companions, and any of them can heal, or DPS, or tank. That's my impression that you'll get from this.
I wonder if that means they'll have exactly one set of skills then.
I think it's more at different stances. There'll just be one generic set that all companions will have. Companions won't be unique in that respect anymore. They'll just be able to do everything.
Right.
Which is a bit disappointing since some of them do have special abilities, but overall it does make life a lot simpler.
Yeah, like Treek with her little winged jump and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, Treek's the one who can sort of do everything, so...
Yeah, they're going to be very Treek-like.
Now, with the restructuring of the companions, what are they doing with crafting? We don't know, because they haven't talked about crafting yet. But big things are changing. They did mention that thing about crafting nodes. Yeah, to add, and someone mentioned that apparently they are planning to make gathering nodes adaptive. That is, give mats for your level, your crew skill level, regardless of what planet you're on. So as we know, as you're leveling and you're keeping your crew skill up to date, you go to a planet and they could be read to you because your crew skill in biochem or whatever, bioanalysis, is not high enough. Right. They're taking that away. So all nodes everywhere will always work regardless of level.
But they'll just give you different stuff.
Based on your crew skill level, yes.
Interesting.
So everybody's just going to find the densest patch of nodes and For us on a PvE
Well,
server, I'm not that worried, but for a PvP server, I feel bad for low-level people that are trying to level up. If you're going to have a bunch of high-level people that are now attracted to the low-level areas because the nodes are denser there, if they're getting high-level mats there.
Of course, it does big. Well, what about if you want those lobby mats? How do you
That's
get
where I was
them?
going to go with it. Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because then it'll just be impossible. So, because once you've leveled beyond it, they'll adapt up to whatever the current level is. So, if they're doing this, then maybe the change they're making the crafting is doing something spectacularly weird with the actual construction of items from crew skills.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah,
so
the only other
let's-
thing I could think that would be sort of nice, because I am having trouble with 12 times XP. I really have to work hard to keep my crafting, or to keep my gathering skills up. So I do kind of have to
Yes.
take a detour, and it's harder with archaeology than the other two, because the other two you can just find some mobs that are a couple levels lower and then grind it out, and it goes relatively quickly. Is if a node would not have been accessible to you if it just basically becomes something that's the highest level that is accessible to you, so you could continue to roll through and continue to level up. But once you've reached that level, that's the highest level that that node can be, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it can never exceed the level of that
Right.
planet,
Right.
but
That
it
might
can
make
be
a lot of
lower
sense.
for people who aren't there yet.
That would make a lot of sense, and that would be perfect.
Right.
So,
That would
yeah,
actually
okay.
work really well. Yeah.
Yep. Good thought. Well, we'll see. And yeah, that just makes too much sense. Huge improvements in crafting in Kottvi. Again, no details yet. So, in terms of preparing for it, until we see that crafting blog, we just don't know. Will some mats be made obsolete? Will they disappear from the game? We'll find out.
I wonder how many, back to the fighting over the nodes, so before you were talking about, archaeology was harder because you had to, you can only get them from nodes. You couldn't get them from mobs.
Yep.
If every single node that they have on the map is accessible to anybody with any crafting skill, if they don't change up the quantity and locations of those mats, I mean, they're just, how often are you going to run across one that's there? I'm kind of worried, because if I'm the only scavenger that ran through this area, then everything then in that area is basically mine for the taking. But when it switches to this, every node that's out there, when somebody's there, it's going to be gone, or a possibility of being gone. So I just wonder how
Right.
scarce nodes are going to be.
Yeah, that is one thing with the 12 times XP. If you do keep on top of your gathering, that I see a lot of people leaving stuff behind. I just run behind them, sweeping up all the stuff they killed and gathering
Right.
the stuff. The thing that I would like to see, since the other two gatherings you're able to kill things and get stuff from them, I would like to see
Right.
archaeology have that. And I don't think that it's game breaking or lore breaking necessarily to have something like when you kill Force characters. Like, so if you kill a Jedi, that Jedi may have been carrying an artifact for whatever reason. So you can pull artifacts off of Jedi NPCs or something. It'd be nice to have some way to get archaeology stuff off of killing things if the other two are going to have that. Either that or just decide that it's going to be solely nodes, because it's not really fair the way they have it now.
Right, that's a good point. I was thinking humanoids would be a good thing. Like you said, you pick their pockets. It's something like pick their pockets and gained whatever crystal or artifact.
Alright, let's talk about flashpoints and operations. There's really nothing new that came out of it, beyond the fact that Nightmare operations will never exist anymore. Only story and hard mode forever. And this refers to Temple of Sacrifice and Ravagers and any upcoming new operations after the release of Coffee. So Nightmare is gone forever. I don't know if that
Also-
means hardmare, but yeah, so that's it. Story and hard going
We
forward.
already have nightmare modes of some operations, and they're scaling those operations up. So are they just going to delete that nightmare mode with all those extra mechanics?
No.
No.
If it has a Nightmare mode, it exists, and they have confirmed that. They will remain.
Will you be
in
able to
the
get better gear than hard mode, or will it just be the same gear but more
Gear
challenging?
will be the same, but
yeah.
it will have the extra mechanics and the extra rewards, such as mounts and...
Oh yeah,
Right,
if they had
decos.
really cool decos in there or something, some sort of
Yeah, they
rack-
did specify that the Nightmare mode is only going to have titles, mounts, just cosmetic type things extra from running Nightmare.
They asked about Colicoid War Games and Directive 7, which were sort of conspicuously left out of the list. Michael Backus was really sure that they were going to be in there, and he was surprised they were left off the list. So maybe we will get them too, which would be cool. Directive 7 especially, Colicoid War Games, which we ran through with Kuze a little while ago, and geez, those two, when you get on the turrets the first time and the turrets the second time, it's just painfully time-consuming. It's just a waste of time, really. The rest
I don't know
cool.
why they needed to have the two separate ones.
Yeah,
for
just
that.
One set of turrets.
Do it once. But I do like that they have the puzzle aspect in there. And Kuze had mentioned in our raids that there used to always be a puzzle boss, and more recently they've sort of faded away from that. Yeah. So I do sort of get, once you've defeated the puzzle, then it's just sort of going through the motions. But it is really fun having that aspect the first time, trying to figure things out. Even in Dread Fortress, just figuring out how to get everybody through the gates to get to the gate commander.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot in Dread Fortress.
Yes.
There was the floor that you had to worry about, which piece dropped. There was the time boss, and like you said, going through the gates. The minefield was great, and explosive conflict. That was really fun, and it took coordination.
And the merchant and Scum and Villainy.
Yeah, the merchant and Scum and Villainy. All of that was great. They kind of left that out in Temple of Sacrifice and Battle of Rishi. Or whatever.
Right.
Ravagers, yeah.
Ravagers.
Moving on. Chat bubbles may turn up if anyone cares. Fleet. They're actually not going to change the fleet, but there will be a new hub for Imperials and Republic can actually talk and interact. That's an interesting idea. It's close to the size of the current fleet's main level. Okay.
I mean, it's the same thing in Zios right now. We all go to one hub. The only thing is they probably allowed you to all speak in general chat. Great. We have more shit talking and and other stuff going on from both sides, not just from one.
Yeah, having imps and pubs in the same general chat, I'm not sure how I feel about. The upside potential of this is if they let our guilds talk across. That would be a huge thing that I would like to see.
You mean like friendly guilds?
Well, so we have the Empire and the Republic side. If they allow us to have a cross communication, so we can either create a channel or some way that we can communicate with people to see who's on the other side without popping over there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I'm
Maybe
leveling on
finally
the Empire side, I haven't been
cross-faction
seeing
guilds.
that many people over there.
So if they combine if you can have a cross-faction guild, what are we going to call ours? Alright, an issue for another day. Next question was the stuff about Galactic Starfighter. Bottom line is we will see nothing new for a year, at least. Nothing new for a year. There was an interesting question. What about the level 50, the on-rail space missions? Michael Backus smiled and then said, don't worry, we have something up our sleeve for that. So, this is my optimistic interpretation, is that they're going to add PvE for GSF. So they won't enhance the level 50, but the on-rail space missions, but they will finally add PvE version of GSF, which would be every kind of win. So, they didn't say that. That is just me being optimistic.
Yeah, I don't read that at all.
Yeah, it's just me. But overall, GSF, nothing in the COTFI time frame. Don't look for it until at least halfway through next year at the earliest.
And some new gear for the on-rail space missions for your ship. Hopefully when the expansion comes out, maybe in Cybertech they'll throw in a few mats that you can go hunt down somewhere and get and learn, so you can make new pieces of equipment for your ship. Kind of make those level 50s a little bit easier.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, speaking of ship, but not the ship you were talking... Oh, I guess sort of the ship you're talking about. So, we couldn't have a choice of ships or different ships because so many things happen with your companions on the ship and class story on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
But when COTFI comes out, all of that stuff is over and you can't do any of that stuff anymore, does that open up the possibility that you could get a new ship, or that you could have even a choice of ships?
Oh, especially with strongholds being... We've got those as our hub now, so...
Yeah, and decorate your own ship.
I hope BioWare is listening and writing this stuff down. It's not too late. Throw it in there.
Oh, that's
so
a big job.
before they were talking about, okay, we don't want to allow you to, because people are asking to decorate their personal starships, and they said no, because as you were saying, that's, you know, a lot of the cutscenes and your companions and stuff or whatever have to interact with the environment. But with the bug that they have and the Yavin strongholds, where they keep replaying the cinematic over and over again, when you change the decorations in a Yavin stronghold, when it pans through that first opening scene of Yavin, anything that you've changed is added into those cutscenes. So
That's
when you're
cool.
going in, so
it's a live view of the.
it's a live
of the
view.
stronghold.
So you would think that they would be able to do, even when your character's walking across like the bridge that's in Yavin, it's a live view. So everything that I've placed there is there. So they evidently they're able to do it. So I guess we'll see.
It certainly, since we know they're going to be turning off all the old missions and old companion stuff, maybe there will be sort of some fundamental change to the ships that will allow them to do something like that. But maybe it will only be available to characters who have gotten past that point in the story. So, you know, maybe it's possible that the ship will sort of on the surface look the same, but because of all those hooks and stuff, won't be, you know, under the surface anymore. For companion stories and all that kind of stuff, and all your class missions, those will all be gone, not necessary. So maybe, you know, maybe at that point they could change it up so you could actually have decorations or something.
All right. They asked whether Kotlin will bring a graphical update. Someone else also asked about a DirectX 12 or a 64-bit version of the client. Mention that. And the general idea and what they said was they want as many people to be able to play as possible. So they're not looking to just put it onto only high-end stuff. But having a 64-bit version of the client, I mean, why not? Pretty much everyone has 64-bit OSs these days, or CPUs at least, and running 64-bit OS. DirectX 12, which came with Windows 10, probably a bit of a push, but yeah. They can do a lot more with the later versions of DirectX, that's for sure. Get your GPU to do a lot of the work. At the moment, DX9 that they're stuck on, your CPU is actually doing a lot of grunt work as well. It's just not making full use of your graphics card at all. That would be nice, but yeah, not necessarily coming. What else? New PvP maps. So, point of game update 3.3 was to fix the population of PvP. So get more people into it, make it more accessible, etc. by the cheaper prices for the gear. And they, BioWare, are constantly prototyping new war zones internally. Nothing to announce on timing, but they're always working on new stuff. Same goes for operations and flashpoints. So I don't know how to take this beyond the fact that they prototype this stuff and it's always terrible, and so they just have to throw it away.
Well, so I was actually surprised on the Galactic Gamers Coalition to hear so many people feel that they don't need new war zones, that PvP
That's what
is
Snake
just...
said, yeah.
But I thought other people sort of were on board for that.
Yeah.
For me, I think that it brings people back or brings people in. So there's people who are going to PvP regardless, and they don't necessarily need something. But if you want to bring other people in, and I think one thing that I would like to see, and I had another rant that I had sent you a while back about it, is things like NPC interaction in war zones, is if you had something that might bring PvE players in. So in World of Warcraft, like very early in the game, I did like open world PvP, and then I sort of drifted away. And then once they had like NPC things, it was like, oh, you can be the PvE crew that goes in there, and you're going to go fight this boss, and we're going to go hold people off. And that really brought me into PvP, and then I started actually enjoying the fights in PvP. So I think one way to help the community is sort of bring in a wider base of people by providing some aspect of it that they feel comfortable with, and then they'll sort of, the other aspects may grow on them.
I think that's an interesting point. Yeah, because, well, what Snave was saying is true, that PvPers tend to make their own content. You know, you just throw two PvPers together in the same box and they will scrap with each other, essentially. So new war zones may, for a dyed-in-the-wool PvPer may not be super necessary. I think what you're saying is right, Turg, that there's only a limited number of old-time PvPers, and if you want new people, maybe it is time for some extra war zones or some new interesting mechanics.
Right. And I don't think... I'm trying to think of from a new player's perspective, how do I know PvP is out there? Other than new changes coming to the game. So, with this change that just came to PvP with the new gear and stuff like that, it was in the patch notes, so maybe, new people who don't know about PvP read into it and said, oh, what is this? I'm going to go check it out. Because all GSF is, and all PvP is a little button on your map.
Mm-hmm.
And just by chance, I might click it and see what it is. Otherwise, I'm going to be running through doing 12x XP and not even know that these other game modes exist. Which brings me back to promotion and guild calendar, or not guild calendars, but in-game calendars and things where somebody can check and see what the new event is. And I would like them to do, okay, PvP this week of the month is going to have boosted XP. I guarantee you, if they made 12x XP a PvP thing and not a story thing, this expansion would be all about PvP. Because everybody who wanted to level, well, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people who wanted to level would have been in PvP trying to level the characters up because that's the fastest way to do it. So there's no attention drawn to these aspects of the game. And like Snave said, that PvPers make their own content is true, but I think that new maps, changes to PvP, bring attention to people who might not know that it's there into the game and then get them hooked and started.
So with something like in Shadow of Revan, when you get near the end of the quest line, you have to go do a bunch of dailies. And that's just part of it. So you have to complete whatever it is, 5 or 7 dailies. So I don't see why you couldn't have something that says, we need to, reinforce. We need people on the front lines of the battle. Like, go do a couple of these a couple of these war zones, or we have a space battle going on right now. Go jump into space and do some space stuff. And it sort of points them down there. Maybe it makes the little thing glow, so they have to go click on it. And that's one option. So you can do either dailies or war zones or Galactic Starfighter to complete that particular mission.
Right. All right, let's mosey on through the rest here. Seeker Droid, macros, binocular stuff. There was all original missions were tied to the Dread Masters, but maybe there'll be some more later. Who knows? I know they've been using the Seeker Droid and the macro functionality, like in Shadow of Revan. A lot of those, a few of those missions use that stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry. I don't love the Seeker Droid stuff. I do like the macro binocular stuff.
Yeah.
It is really fun trying to find where the things are, and it's a different way of looking at the game. So rather than being in a first person, sort of changes your perspective, and you sort of see things a little differently. So I do like that, and that's what you're talking about right there is what I've been harping on with all the other stuff is they've created all these really cool games inside of the game. So use them. So you have the macro binoculars, you have the Seeker Droid, use them in the quest lines, and they did that at least a little bit on Rishi, and I like that. And so I hope that they do more of that and maybe bring some other parts of the game in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about cross-server, or better than cross-server. They are not ignoring the issue, and something awesome is in the works. If you listen to Michael Backus's explanation of this, it sounds like they're working on something, and they've been doing other things to try and fix the queues, like with Game Update 3.3 with PvP, that kind of thing. But he obviously said nothing specific and didn't really give a time frame for whatever it is that they're thinking of.
Right.
Now, we had an email from Thanatos, who said, so with the reveal that both sides have been all but wiped out by the Zakul, and the apparent alliance, or at least temporary cooperation between the Republic and Sith Empire forces, as may be suggested by Darth Maul's appearance in the Outlander trailer with the Jedi Knight, what are the chances that any new Flashpoints released in 2016 would be cross-faction?
Oh my god.
That is, Republic and Empire players could queue via Group Finder for the same Flashpoint. Would that be better than cross-server? Any hint of this whatsoever in any discussions with or other reveals from the devs recently? Would the game architecture even permit such a thing? And if so, what are your thoughts on the desirability of cross-faction Flashpoints? And in your opinion, is this more or less likely to occur than BioWare releasing Hutt as a playable character species? So I think it is more likely than them adding hunters are playable. That doesn't actually make it very likely at all. So they've made it clear whenever this has come up previously, they never want to do this. The Empire versus Republic thing is so fundamental to Star Wars that they're just not going to do it, is what they've said in the past.
Right,
But
in the past.
never say never. So there is no hint. No hint. There's this shared hub stuff instead of the fleet, where we're having this shared hub for Kotfi that may imply something, but probably not. And getting new flashpoints in 2016 is probably a little optimistic anyway.
I don't want the lines blurred any more than they already are. I'd like having somebody to hate. You know, if I'm on the pub side and I want to hate the Empire side, and if I'm on the Empire side, I want to hate the pub side and have a shared enemy as well. I want to have enough hate to go around, and if they start blurring the lines, it's just going to suck. Why even have two separate factions at that point in time? You might as well just group it in and say, we are Star Wars.
Yeah, the only exception I would put in is if it becomes necessary to balance ranked PvP, is arenas don't really have, so like something like Alderaan and Novar Coast, there's sort of a story behind it. The arenas are just a skirmish anyways, and you know, I like that it's Republic versus Empire, but if they find that one side is just so much stronger than the other, I would rather have balanced matches than have it be sort of lore consistent.
Yeah, that's fair. What else? Oh, this is for Kuze. In a small group, we talked to one of the designers about Grimtooth, the Rancor of Keb. The conclusion there is, if there is a legacy achievement, then it must be doable, and they will look into it. This is obviously, maybe the designer isn't aware that you can glitch your way in. I believe this is what you were talking about, Kuze.
Huh.
Yeah, I would like them to expand upon this a little bit more, because it sounds like they're unsure if it works the way that it's supposed to, or they're implying that it does and we need to go figure it out. So I'm not going to, as I told you before, I'm not going to spend 4 hours or some crazy crap on McKeb trying to figure out how to get into this cage legitimately, just to find out that really it's been glitched this whole time and I've just wasted 4 hours of messing around in McKeb when I could have done something else. If you tell me it's good to go, I'll go do it. I don't care how long it takes, as long as it's not glitched. If I didn't have the history of doing this in the past with BioWare's gameplay and quest and things that are glitched and that I've wasted my time on, I wouldn't be so jaded. But I have, and I know the history, so I'm not going to go figure it out until I get confirmation that it actually works.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, a few other interesting things. Sorry, Chill, do you want to say something?
No, I was just noticing you reacting to the chat.
Yeah. Yes, Sammy is awake. All planets will have no changes from Kotfi. It would be too much work. We did speculate whether they're going to go back and change all the old worlds that we've leveled on, Tatooine, etc., etc. Apparently not.
And
Too
the
hard.
reasoning is exactly as we speculated as well.
Yeah, exactly. Training dummy decos are still work in progress, no ETA, so 2018 for that one.
At least they're working.
The PvP Nexu mount was, as we talked about, it was given out to a lot of people who didn't get in the gold tier for ranked PvP. Apparently that wasn't entirely random. Those players that did get it were the ones who performed best in unranked PvP, in addition to the guys in the gold tier.
Interesting.
So there you go. They're tracking that as well. How about that?
Bit of a feather in the cap, yeah.
Place.
Yeah. Is there a silent ELO for regular
Interesting,
Warzones?
isn't it? Yeah.
Well, his name's the Rake Star, so we should ask him if he got it.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, I remember someone in chat the other week was saying that they got two of the Nexu mounts. So apparently they did well in both kinds.
It's a bug that not all decos can be donated to the guild. Now we ran into this with the Walker from from the Walker World Boss on Yavin 4, where Moss tried to donate it and it just wasn't possible, and that is a bug. So that we'll be looking into it.
Bugs with
I've
decos?
tried to
Say
donate
it
a
ain't
lot
so.
of things, and it just always bugs out on me. Sorry about that.
That's all right. All right, let's come to the big reveal, and this is a doozy from Michael Backus. He was talking about the new statistic. It's called Mastery. We were actually joking about this, that they would replace strength and strength and will, cunning and aim with a single stat, and they'd call it win. But they didn't call it win, they called it mastery. And they are actually going to do that. So All of the class-specific main stats are going away, will be replaced with a single stat called Mastery.
Wow.
And they're going to adjust all the stat mechanics and stat forms. Gear, all classes are going to receive new skills and stats. Da-da-da. So...
Let's address the name
Now-
first, if we can do that. Why Mastery? It was a World of Warcraft stat, so it kind of
It is.
bothers me that they named it Mastery, and Turg alluded to this previously, that why don't they call it midichlorians? I was like, and I made a joke saying, yeah, check out the midichlorians on that Twi'lek. It sounds a lot better than check out the Mastery on that Twi'lek. So,
But I said it sort of tongue-in-cheek because I know that there are mixed feelings in the community about midichlorians and their existence and how all that happens. But it's something that is SWTOR or Star Wars universe-related rather than sort of the generic Mastery would be kind of cool.
So,
Right.
let's just think about... Go
I
ahead.
think the trickiness is just the fact that there are Force characters and non-Force characters, and it doesn't
Yeah, I
make
was
sense
thinking
to
about
use
that, too.
midichlorians for smugglers and agents.
yeah.
So,
But a different name I thought would have been better.
yeah.
Now,
Anyways.
let's,
I get that.
let's just think about the game impact of this. Firstly, in terms of gear, it really doesn't matter. It just means everyone can use everyone else's gear, except for the set bonuses that you'll get presumably from operations. So that, unless they have a way of a set bonus magically changing to whichever class equips it, in which case gear is completely transferable, as Turk was saying earlier, he can have a legacy set that he can share between every single character. Maybe the weapons will have to be
Except
different.
for your tanks.
Weapons might be
split up.
different.
Well,
yeah.
Shield generators
anytime that-
versus power, yep.
Currently, anytime that you get a set bonus, you get a token. And you take a
Yes.
token to your vendor. So
Yes.
there still might be separate vendors. I was being facetious before and said there's only going to be one vendor and everybody just gets their stuff off of that. I hope not. You can go to your vendor, spend your token, and you would get the appropriate set bonus. But you would have to pay attention to make sure that you're on the right vendor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will there still be light, medium, and heavy armor?
No reason they would change that.
Well, they've already gone away from that. Almost everything's adaptive at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an awful lot
Yeah,
of
that's
leveling
fine.
gear, though.
They'll get rid of the old stuff, but I don't think the new stuff is going to have an armor rating. I think it's all going to be adaptive.
They have said
Yeah.
they're sort of re-itemizing everything throughout the game in terms of missions and this whole mastery thing, because this will affect everything. Maybe they're just going to make every single piece of gear adaptive, so it really doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, chill.
Yeah.
That's a good question. So maybe it just won't matter.
Maybe.
So it doesn't. Go ahead, Chill. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I'm gonna have to go hunt a lot more datacrons now. So because I did not get the aim on my Jedi's. So
let's talk about that. Datacrons, obviously, there are the ones specific that give you will and strength and all the rest. Now they'll all give you mastery.
Except for
let-
endurance.
Except for endurance, which will
Right,
remain
and
the
presence.
same. Which
No, I think
Yep.
presence is going away as well. They said all main stats except for endurance, so that makes me believe that presence is going away.
Oh wow!
Presence
Gee,
is
that'd be a
considered a
massive
main
change.
stat.
Yeah, they haven't
Is
talked
it?
about
I
that, so
guess it
don't know.
is.
Don't know. That's speculation.
yeah, it's
Um,
above the line, but
Now, while we just bringing up Datacrons, let's just mention that this is an actual goal post from Bioware. They are going to make. They're actively looking at making all Datacrons legacy-wide in Knights of the Fallen Empire. Now, so let's just talk about that before we go back to the main stat. The consequence of that basically means that you just have to get each Datacron once on your legacy, and the way I'm reading this, that stat boost will then be given to any character you create within that legacy.
right.
All right. Personally, I think this is a terrible change. I think it just removes a whole lot of fun stuff you can do on a given character. It's just something you do as you're leveling, and now you won't have to. You get it once, like I'm a Datacron master, as is obviously Kuze, and we got them all. So done. Never have to
Right.
get a Datacron again. Just seems a bit sad.
Yeah, assuming that it backtracks, that you don't have to. do
It'll
it
be
sometime in the
retrospective.
future.
Yeah.
You think so?
Well,
Okay.
it already
Yes.
shows in every character, so everybody's tied to the same achievement. So it already shows in every character's window that you have that
Okay.
achievement. Now there is codex that are separate. So if people are serious and or an OCD and maybe they want to hunt down codex, they're separate between each character, from what I remember. So if they wanted to do that, they can go do it just to grab the codex. But what's the point to me, it's another.
Yeah.
I like the idea. It's awesome because I don't have to worry about it anymore because I've done it numerous times.
Yeah.
Right.
But it does take away from another part of the game, another aspect of the game that people can enjoy,
Some
just
people
along
enjoy
with
it, yeah.
everything else that they've
Now,
done.
does that mean they're going to be like halving the amount, so that the bonus is not effectively doubled?
In essence, I mean, it'll all be rebaselined,
Or
so
be
it's not like you're going to
balanced
get any kind of
in some way?
bonus out of it, yeah. But there is the
Right.
equivalent Datacron in each faction, so how's that going to work? Will you have
Well-
to do it on both sides to get the maximum benefit?
I would
Or is
imagine
it
you
just
might.
you get it once from...
Most
you
of
do
them
it
are shared.
Once, yeah, so you do it one side or the other, you're done. You don't have to do it again.
Most of them are shared. There are probably 10% or maybe a little bit more, I'm just guesstimating here, that are specific to the faction. But there are some shared Datacrons that you share. It's the same
Right.
codex
At higher levels, especially.
at higher...
Like,
yeah.
like the beginning planets, those are separate.
There's a lot of work that they're going to have to do to figure it out, how they're going to
Yeah.
apply mastery to everything and make it, I guess, even across the board.
If they are going to go back and look at the Datacron system, regardless of whether they do legacy-wide or character-based, I would like there to be a simple window that I can pull up that shows all the Datacrons, and they're all grayed. And once I get them, then they're highlighted, so I can tell exactly which ones I have and which ones I don't have. Because I have no clue, and I know there's codexes and achievements and stuff, and I could dig those somewhere. But honestly, I don't ever look at codexes. I don't look at achievements. That's not something that's important to me, and it seems very difficult to somebody who isn't into that sort of thing. So it'd be nice if just for somebody walking into the game, they had a really easy pull it up. Oh, these are the ones I have. These are the ones I need.
If they right now, so achievements is a great way, but it's hidden in exploration, I think. So if you go to the planet and you click on the planet, that there was a second breakout that was specifically said Datacrons, that people could access a little bit easier than now. You got to click on the planet, click on
so I do
exploration,
have to-
and then find it in there.
So the way it is now, I have to check each planet and then check the Datacrons for that planet and
Yeah.
see if I have the achievements and then check the next planet. So
Yes,
I have to
I
do
mean
it
if you're
however
on the
50
planet
times
or whatever, or you can get the spreadsheet. I think I gave it to you a long time ago. It's a little checkbox for each planet that I've already picked them up on. I can send that back out. It has all
I mean,
the.
that doesn't help me telling me what I already have, though.
No,
I
you
want to
do.
know
You
what,
keep
what
the
all the
sheet
characters have.
and you mark it off.
Well, yeah, from the beginning. I'm saying we're several years into the game. I have no clue what characters I got what on. And I know some
know
of
what
them I just did for fun, and they were on a character that wasn't relevant to. There was that one on Hoth that you have to jump on the boxes. I spent like an hour doing that, and I didn't pay attention to what it was. I think it was either aim or cunning, and I think I did it on a Jedi. So
Well, on that same, if you go, you can cross. You can see what you have on that same sheet. It has the codex entry, so you just have to do some cross-checking between your codexes that you have versus what's on the sheet. If Ask Mr. Robot do they still have information up? I know it's not updated, but do they
It's
still
gone.
have SWTOR? It's gone. Okay.
Gone.
They had a good little system that you can go in there and it would tell you what each Datacron was, what codex number it was.
Well, so
Yeah.
again, getting back to one of your points earlier, a lot of this requires sort of going outside of the game, and there's not really anything in the game. So if somebody just rolled up into the game today, would they know that Datacrons exist? Would they know that that's something they should be looking for?
No, other than running across the ones that are laying out in the field on the lower level planets and saying, "Oh, what's this?"
Or seeing it in their codex if they eventually stumble over that.
I mean, it would be sort of cool if they had, maybe they have a quest on the fleet that you pick up that requires you to get different Datacrons.
And actually, like
do that.
I forgot who it was. And chats mentioned that once you do get all of the Datacrons, that you get a decoration, and if you have it in your stronghold, it's a table that has all the Datacrons on it. Your new characters can just go up to that table and click on it, and you would receive all the Datacrons stats that you've already got.
That'd be nice.
I thought that was
Well,
pretty cool.
it won't be like that, but that is kind of cool.
No, that's a good
It would be a
idea.
fun way, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay, back to main stat.
yeah, mastery. It's just a dumbing down. Well, not really, because the mastery just is the stat for each class. It doesn't really make much difference, really. And all it means
Somewhat.
is you can sort of wear any gear and it won't matter. You can't screw up and get the wrong stuff. Like
Sam,
To me, it basically is just
Gonna
pointing
tell
out
ya.
the fact that their original system was stupid. They made an attempt to copy what was in other MMOs, like World of Warcraft, where you had things like strength, agility, intellect, and spirit, and you kind of got to choose which ones you wanted. And there were certain that were applicable to certain classes and not applicable to other classes. But there were some cases where, well, do I want to go spirit or intellect, or do I want to split the difference? And so I feel like they felt they needed to have these different things. But then they did this really hokey thing where, oh, except for when you're on this class, it'll give you everything that you want. And when you're on any other class, then it doesn't give you anything you want. So you really have to take that one stat. So there is no choice, and there's no theory crafting behind it. So there's nothing interesting about it. There's really no reason for it. The only thing I could think of was when the game first came out, they were very strict about what gear you could wear for RP reasons. Is they wanted a Jedi to look like a Jedi. You had to be wearing your robes. So aside from the gear type, you had that as another option. So, like, say, with medium armor, a Jedi could wear the same thing as a scoundrel. Well, they didn't want the scoundrel looking like a sentinel, so they put a stat on it that was completely useless to the scoundrel. So the scoundrels wouldn't take that gear and look like a Jedi and vice versa. So that's, at this point, we've gone way past that. We have adaptive gear. You can look like whatever you want to look like. You have a little icon above your head that says what class you are. So there's really no reason I can find to still have that system. The only thing I would say is, rather than just simplifying the stupid way they had it, is if they made it more interesting and had kept 4 stats, but had the 4 stats actually be tied to one of the 4 ability types. So the game has 4 ability types: force, melee, ranged, and tech, and have each of these 4 stats be one of those things, and then you actually would get to make decisions about what was important to you. Oh, well, the majority of my damage comes from range, so I want to make sure I have aim because aim boosts my range. Well, for this particular spec, I actually do a lot of tech damage because I'm using explosives and stuff. So for me, I'd actually want to have some cunning on my gear to sort of balance things out. I think that would be a way more interesting way to do it. It would make things more difficult for them to balance, and so I don't think they ever would do it. I think that we'll never see them make things more interesting. We will see them dumb things down.
Yeah, well, it depends what they're doing with the secondary stats as well. But
So that's the other thing with the mastery change is it's a superficial change that doesn't really change anything. The only thing that worries me is if this is a red flag that, hey, they're going back and they're stripping things down to make it easier for new players to enter the game. And when you get down into secondary and tertiary stats, that's really where the interesting theory crafting is right now, because there wasn't any for primary stat. So if this is reflecting what they're doing to those, I have concerns.
All right. That's a slippery slope, and we're not sliding down there quite yet.
My thoughts is that everybody's just focusing on what is it replacing? It's replacing the other main stats into one, and does it really matter because I always had aim and I have to take aim? I might as well just take mastery. I mean, it makes no difference to me.
It's cosmetic,
and I think it's cosmetic in that sense. But I also think that there's new players that come in the game and they're like, oh, what the hell is aim? What is cunning? What is strength? I don't know. Let me go read. Oh, and as they're reading, they're learning. So it kind of takes away from that, where it is dumbing down the system, where people, they don't have to care what they have on anymore. They just pick up whatever they got. They don't have to go and learn and research and learn their character and learn how to play. It was kind of the step into the door of theory crafting was, what do I need to have on my character? The other things that I've been thinking about that's kind of bothering me is we're thinking about strictly gear. And it's not just gear that's going to be affected as well. Somewhat we talked about datacrons, of course. Stims. All stims now are just going to be what? A healing stim, a DPS stim, and a tank stim.
Yep.
Right.
So what does that mean? That means there's only going to be 3 stims on the GTN. What does that mean for biochem? People who are making stims. They've already heard it with these 8-hour stims, which I like, but they've hurt the market. There's no niche.
Same with barrels, hilts, armorings, all that
exactly.
stuff is going to go way down.
And that's where I was going after this. There's no niche. So everybody's going to be selling the same exact items on the GTN, and the economy for people who made their little bit of credits off of crafting, what people who did, it's down the tubes. I think BioWare did this not only to dumb the system down a little bit for new players that are coming in, I think they also did it to try to make their life easier, to be honest. Now they only have to make one stem with one graphic and one set of, stats on it for DPS, one for healing, one for this. They only have to make, one barrel. They only have to make one hilt for, well, I guess between probably, tanks might want more endurance or something like that. But other than that, I mean, they've really
Tank
reduced
DPS
their
heal.
workload
Yep.
a lot
Yep.
by changing these stats up. So I think it was more so that they wanted to take the workload off of them and also simplify it was the secondary
Yeah, I mean, from a
way of looking
crafting
at things.
standpoint, what you're pointing out is there was always a huge disparity between the prices. You could check, willpower would be selling for half of what strength would one day. And so for somebody who's really on top of crafting, there was a lot of opportunity to make something that you can make a lot more money off of, and that's completely going away. From a consumer standpoint, people who are buying the things off the GTN, it is a bummer when you look and you say, well, how come all the other hilts are selling for half of what the one that I just happen to need is? So, I don't know. I do feel bad for crafters, and, they haven't talked about what crafting changes they're going to make. I've never been a massive crafter, so, at the end of the day, it's not going to be a huge loss to me, and it does mean that I'll be able to juggle stuff around between my legacy characters more easily. So things will be cheaper overall.
But this is all adding up. So the role players are upset because the storyline is taking down them one path and messing up their made up persona they had about each character. Crafting is going to be affected by this and might be hurt, and the economy is going to be hurt because of it. PvP is suffering because they don't come out with new maps and promote it like they should. Operations is going downhill. Flashpoints are going downhill. Datacrons haven't been updated or changed. Turgut said previously before this on Twitter talking about, wouldn't it be nice if they added some more of those crystals so you can go out and make relics. They have a system in the game that you can go get crystals and make relics. And somebody stated out in the chat room that at one point in time, the relic that you get from your Datacron crystals was best in slot for a while.
Yeah, I think that
Now
may have been even best in slot up through Hut Cartel. I was still using mine. And
Yeah,
it was such a cool idea that you would go out in the world, find all these different matrix cubes, and then you had to go to that Jedi temple or the Sith temple and go in and do your little ceremony and get the thing all put together. It's a really cool thing that they came up with. It was a good idea, and then they just walked away from it. And I was really disappointed that they didn't continue that in this expansion, that they didn't bring out, before they were 3, but now have like a 4th, and you had to get another color, and then that would change what they do. And they didn't have to be the way the original ones were, where it was just straight up your primary stat. It could be the same as the ones that you can buy off the vendor that boost different things, but the different color combinations correspond to stereotypical assault or whatever one you want.
Right.
And all they had to do was add in new colors with the higher level stuff, and then you could have made it from that. So my point is that little by little, to me, every little side aspect of the game that was fun for everybody, regardless if you're a crafter, PvPer, PvEer, all those little things are slowly going to the wayside, and we're left with story.
That's because that's what you really want, Kuze.
I know, it's the damn metrics. and I'm guilty of, padding the numbers on the metrics thing because I leveled all those damn characters because 12 XP was out. They got me.
Tio, I need to be AFK for just a minute. Be right back.
Alright, so let's talk amongst ourselves.
You can add a disclaimer or a note at the beginning of the show to tell people to just listen in 1.5 or 2 times speed. That's how I listen to podcasts, especially if it's going to be a long one. And so, given that we're in a long one, just tell people, go ahead and listen in 2 times speed. You probably won't miss things. None of us talk super fast.
It won't be too long, actually, because we're going to skip through almost everything else. So I'm going to leave a lot of it till next week. Sorry, I don't want to spend the rest of today late into tonight editing. Just
Well, you need to edit in 2 times speed also.
I've thought about doing that, but Adobe Audition doesn't seem to support that. So I would if I could, believe me.
I'm surprised that it doesn't have something in there that allows you to do it, given you can do it in Audacity.
Yes, I noticed that. Of course, I don't want to use Audacity to edit because that would be terrible. Should I... The Jar Jar Joyride, which I was going to get someone to read or read myself in a movie trailer voice. It's a bit long. Maybe I should skip that.
Too bad we don't have
It's a straight
Chuck
read,
here
though.
to do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he would nail that. Do either of you guys do a good movie trailer voice?
No. My voice is too high for that.
Yeah, maybe if we weren't on air, I would give it an embarrassing attempt, but...
Who's doing the, do we have a Utini Rage this time? I hate being called out on the spot.
I do
think
have
Turge,
one.
Do you? Great. Good.
Yes, that was contributed from a listener, so we'll use that. From JSark of Jedi Covenant.
Start working with Sammy to try and get one out of him.
In fact, it was his son, so... It's your average nerdy gamer. Hello. Alright, Chill's back. Where were we? Are we done with the mastery discussion?
I think that's all I wanted to get across. I'll probably later on I'll be listening back and be like, fuck, I forgot to mention this. Anyways.
Alright, so in summary, mastery is replacing main stats, and we don't know about the secondary and tertiary stats yet. Let's not roll down that slippery slope until we find out more. So, and that is official news from BioWare that this is happening, revealed on day 2, I believe, of the Community Cantina. We will find out more, because there's only 2 months left before the release of Knights of the Fallen Empire, so they're running out of time. Or we can just log in on 20 October and see for ourselves.
Well,
The
maybe
big
2 expansions down the road, we won't even have stats. They'll just be on your character automatically, and all you have to do is just play dress up to what you want to look like, and you won't even have to worry about it. You're laughing, but months ago I said, they might as well just go ahead and give us a level 60 character and let us watch a video. And what do we have? We have coffee. We're watching a video and we get a free level 60. I'm telling you.
But they're good cutscenes. All right.
Well, so the takeaway from the stat change is when you first hear it or see it, you think that it's going to be something that affects your theory crafting or your play, and it really doesn't. Where it affects things is things like crafting. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And, well, your interaction with other people. And I just remember the other thing I wanted to say was, so there's going to be a lot of flashpoints that are going to be done because people want gear to get into operations or crafting mats or whatever they want to go into this. So the ninjas before that just only took every single piece that they needed will now be taking every piece because they can use every piece. So beware when you go into pugs.
Ninjas are gone. You can eat on everything you want.
Yeah.
Free for all.
So probably just.
Jeez, I didn't think of
out.
that. That's a good one.
There's lots of things that we're not thinking about when it comes to this.
Yeah. All right, let's just talk community briefly. Chill, did you want to say something about that?
No,
Okay.
that was awesome.
It was. All right, let's talk about community. Thanks to our latest Utini patrons, Jason, also known as Zman, the gamer, on Twitter, and Roderick, no, not Z-Man, Zman.
Thank you.
All right, so
Thank you both.
now the Utini Inception or Utiniception documentary is pretty much complete. Chill and myself have both watched through it. It's I thought it was good, and I don't usually like seeing myself in videos, so I thought it really has hung together really well. Ari has done an amazing job editing that together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, a few touches to make, but hopefully we'll get that out to our Utini patrons, all of our current Utini patrons, soon. TM.
Does it include things like embarrassing baby photos?
That would have been good.
No, it doesn't.
Come on, Ari didn't have anything else to do anyways, being pregnant besides making sandwiches and stuff. So she had plenty of
Vacuuming.
time.
She vacuums a lot.
Vacuuming,
Apparently.
yeah.
Every time we raid.
She's going to backhand you when she meets you. I swear. All right. So we do have a update from our friends in Utini Nights who do the Jar Jar Joyride. This is Ivalon who did this write-up. And I think, Jill, would you be willing to read this in a movie trailer voice, or should I give it a go? Can you do a movie trailer voice?
I think you should try this one. I think it'd be fun to hear you try it. That sort of thing.
I guess I do have a slightly deeper voice. Slightly, maybe.
All right. All I could do is make mine gravelly. It wouldn't be quite the same.
That'd be kind of cool, though, and it would hurt your throat.
Yeah.
All right, so this is from Ivalon. There has been an awakening. Have you smelt it? While the Jara Joyride remains dormant, asleep in its dusty sandcrawler, a new force has arisen in the galaxy. This force, unhindered by process, logic, or raid etiquette, is a powerful expression of what it means to be middlingly noobish, yet exceedingly effective, eventually. What name might the galaxy bestow on such a force? What moniker is worthy of its intermediateness? The Jar Jar Joyride. To the casual outside observer, the Jawa Joyride may appear to be made up of juvenile, inexperienced, unknowledgeable raiders. But upon closer inspection and true understanding of the team, one will find it to be only slightly incompetent. Juvenile, inexperienced, and unknowledgeable. Indeed, being carried through Story Mode Dread Fortress as a noob scrub 2 years ago is more than enough experience to start one's own raid team. One might vaguely recall hearing tell of the team's Week 1 failure in the cave, as Yoda would put it, a brutal rift-tossing and face-melting stuck-it at the hands of the colossal monolith. But the team would rise again, bolstered by mostly correct rotations, partial understandings, and vague remembrances of fight mechanics long forgotten. The team has now powered its way through 2 nights of phase resets, ruffle stomps, reverse face rolls, egregious wipes, hilarity, and beer. D-Dread, Ivalon, Fiona, Decion, Chinook, Ast, Mariah, and Smoke, along with random pug numbers 1 and 2, have made quickish work of trash and a painfully slow mess of bosses across the galaxy. Terrorized instances include Terror from Beyond, Scum and Villainy, Dread Fortress, Dread Palace, all decimated, and all story mode. Join us. Weezer being robbed and crunched. Jar Jar Joyride, 9 PM Pacific Time, Harbinger Pubside. Finest in chat channel Utini. Thank you, Ivalon.
I didn't pre-read that before you started reading, and that caught me off guard, calling me out with the Java Joyride. It's pretty funny.
Yep.
And I want to know if Gamer 1 and Gamer 2 have red shirts on, because I foresee them guys being cannon fodder and dying a lot.
They should be the tanks. That'd be funny. 9 PM Pacific. Does he give a day?
Oh, Decion and Fiona, what day do you guys run? Luckily, there's not much latency with chat. Twitch. Is it Wednesdays? Thursdays?
No, I thought it was a weeknight. I thought it was a Friday or Saturday night.
I don't remember.
All right, let's just hang on. When they catch up.
You may have a second career in sports documentary voiceover.
Yeah, no.
It was good when I was listening to it. I was just picturing talking about some epic rugby match or something.
And that's on Thursday night, 9 PM Pacific time.
Thursday, okay. Awesome.
All right, now we do have a bunch of other stuff which you're going to skip because we're running really long. I will mention that this week's Utini Rage was contributed by J-Sark's son. Now, J-Sark is on the Jedi Covenant and has the best Twitter handle ever at BornToEatBacon. So anyway, thank you to his son, and he will have something to say about some more humour for next week's show. There are, just from community, there's a couple of analyses of the Become the Outlander gameplay trailer, one from our good friend Zamzam, and who's done a blog post, and Kranatoko has done a video with a co-host. So I'll link to both of those if you want to have some in-depth analysis of what's in those trailers. Anyway, that's the news.
Alrighty, that'll bring us to the force feedback where we read out your tweets and emails. And chat room, if you have any questions to ask, we'll be gathering them now to answer once we're done with the feedback.
Sure, we're going to cut this off at a certain point, so we'll go through the initial stuff, and I'll probably stop when it comes to the mentioning the spoiler cast. We'll stop there.
Alright.
Keep on going.
Starting off with Java Doggy. How about BioWare updates the rep slot machines for groups like the Binary Star Realty, Bounty Supply Company, S-Gen Exports, and the like? Or create an alternative that, an app that allows us to collect rep and have it transferred to the game. Okay, so an app, yeah. That allows us to collect rep and have it transferred to the game. A thought to put out there. Nice, yeah. Was that just something we thought of on our show, was just having different slot machines for different...
I think they mentioned it.
Yeah.
They mentioned it about being... Yes.
Okay.
But they failed. They failed again, and now I think they're hoping everybody forgot about it.
Yeah, they were. They made it quite clear they were kind of a little surprised by the original reaction to that first slot machine that people could put into their strongholds, and they've been kind of scared to introduce the rest. As far as an app goes, that you could like play offline and then it would give you rep in game, that would be awesome. Just saying.
I think it's worth noting that they do have an app that gives you cartel coins.
The authenticator.
Yeah,
That's
Yes.
true.
You play it
And I
every
think-
time you log in. Yes.
everybody's a
Right.
winner.
And if someone really had a few of those certificates and needed the rep, they would play a different machine just for the rep.
Yeah.
I mean, so that they could actually get things off of the vendors. So, and
Also remember
there's
those-
got to be a market for it.
And the
All they
machines,
need-
remember,
yeah.
were really overly generous, remember? And then they had to nerf the hell out of them.
Yeah, they
People
nerfed
paying
the
a
hell
lot
out
of
of them.
credits and then...
Well, that's why I said that they failed the first time when they put it out because it was too generous, and then they failed again the second time when they fixed it because it wasn't enough. Don't know what the show number was, but there's a great example of what they could do to the slot machine that it would be perfect for everybody. There's even a picture there for you. So, BioWare, if you want to go take a look at it and see how you should implement a real slot machine, go take a look at it. It's in the 90s, I think. Maybe later. Sorry, no, it's later than that. I might even have it saved. Just send me an email.
So JB wrote, someone asked, where's the halfway point to level 60 on your show a couple episodes ago? Find attached an XLS I've had for a while, which breaks down each level and where it sits from the level cap.
Now, just taking a quick snapshot of this spreadsheet, which I'll include in the show notes, and the answer, and what he's done is for every level, he mentions the amount of XP you get for it, and the cumulative XP, and what percentage that is on the way to 60, assuming that level 60 is that amount of XP, which, just out of interest, 1.13 million XP points to get you to level 60. And the answer is you are halfway when you're about 76% between levels 50 and 51. That is your halfway point.
Very
Well,
nice.
so I have two issues with this. The column for levels, they're going up, and then you get 51, 52 is 82,000, and then it drops down to 40,000 for the next level. Then it goes up to 100,000, and then once you hit 55 to 56, it drops back down to 52,000. It doesn't seem right to me.
Oh, so his spreadsheet's bugged? I guess that's possible.
I don't
And
know.
it was
I'm just looking
halfway
at what's
between
in the show
51
notes,
and 52.
and I highly doubt that the experience required for level would ever drop when you level up.
Oh dear. Alright, we'll have to go back to JB, because that probably
Okay,
completely
anyways,
screws up his results.
Point two is sort of more relevant to the overall, is you get more credit for kills and more credit for completing missions later on. So without sort of factoring that in, it doesn't really give you an idea of the time
Right,
for
it's
investment halfway through
irrespective of
time-wise
time.
versus XP-wise.
And the time will vary from player to player regardless, so it'd be hard to... I guess you could average it, but yeah.
Well,
Anything
basically
else
it would
for-
mean you would take what the average mission turn-in is per level, and then divide it by that to give you a normalized...
You could do something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's cool that you did that. I didn't mean to shit all over it. I appreciate that people are writing it and trying to help out.
Though it really does need to be fixed, because that doesn't seem right. You're right. Now, those 53 and 54 really are just weird.
It's possible.
It is possible. Yeah.
Well, I think 53 and 54 are probably right.
Yeah,
I think
it
it's
seems
52
weird
to
that
53 that's wrong, and then everything past that, I don't think 50,000 doesn't sound like enough XP for those high levels.
yeah, it
Do
does
get
not,
through
does
those
it?
missions pretty quick, but yeah, we do get a lot of XP from those missions as well in Shadow of Raven. So, all right.
All right, Chris wrote in, have any of you guys played Final Fantasy XIV? The MSQ in that, while single player, mostly has MMO bits and could be good for SWTOR, yes or no?
So this is the main sequence quest, or main story quest. I had to look this up because I've never played Final Fantasy XIV. Anyone know what he's really referring to and can answer the question?
Unfortunately, no, I have not.
Yeah.
That dude Jay apparently plays a lot of it, though.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll have to put it aside for now, I think. Brewdog wrote, have you found the New Hope Easter eggs on the latest Cantina speeder? There are 3, and I'll give you 1, the Red Squadron color scheme.
How about that? No idea. No. And no. So bit of a
I haven't
challenge.
noticed.
Please let
Yeah.
us in, or if you found them, email in. And yeah.
And just a side note,
So-
there's 3 Cantina codes that have been put out so far, because I forgot about the one that just happened, that there was one for GameCon.
Yeah, I don't have that one yet. Yeah.
Right, so you should have 3. The first one is inactive anymore, so you can't get it, and spread it around. The other 2 are still active, so search for them. Tor Community has a link to people who are posting theirs, so you
As
can at
does
least get
Dolphy,
2.
by the way. Yep.
Okay, Dolphy. And I'm pretty sure probably when the next one, Cantina, comes out, what's on it's the beginning of October? They'll probably cancel either those 2 or one of them, so get them now while you can.
Cool.
Okay. Remember the second and third codes are actually 50 per use, and so you probably can find some of the originals from the first one out there that will be available if you haven't clicked on them 5 times.
It says in chat that this is no longer available. Even the ones that I still had on my account, it says no longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just letting people know to get it before it's gone, just in case.
All right. This next email from Joe, or the next message from Joe Foreign, is that a spoiler? It is kinda.
Possibly, I
Cool.
don't know. Depends on what the source is, or if he's just speculating.
Well, the Revan split. That is kind of yeah. No. Let's.
Okay.
Yeah. Skip that.
All right. Greg wrote in, anyone else come across this badass Sith? Dual wielding a double-bladed saber and a regular saber. And it's Lord something. Starts with an R, but I can't quite make it out.
Yeah, I'd like to see his combat to see how he's using the double bladed. If he's just using it like a normal blade and it's sort of almost like it was unintended, or if he actually does use it like a double bladed, because that'd be a really cool animation to see him fight.
Yeah. And it looks, that's got to be Corellia, right? That's got to be somewhere on Corellia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's what it looks
definitely
like.
Corellia.
Yep.
Lord Rashal, I think it
Yeah,
says.
I never noticed him.
That's
Unless
cool.
he's one of the ones associated with Conquest, with the champs, though they have a specific title, don't they? So, yeah, probably
Yeah.
not.
I
He
do
is a
like that they have
champion, so-
just random champions on planets. It would be kind of cool if they would have, like, so in the new stuff, if they had champions that were tied to some sort of heroic quest line that you could do. Because I like killing them, but a lot of times it doesn't really mean anything, and they don't really drop anything cool or valuable.
And the achievements in some planets, you can go kill all the champs, and sometimes it gives you a title or something like that. But it's rare.
But I don't do codexes or achievements, so I need monetary value. Give me some
Okay.
money or a quest that gives me some XP.
Chill. Could you read the next one and then we'll finish?
All right,
The one from
Weakness. Gotcha. And let's see, Weakness at Iron Weakness on Twitter, who is Lone Weakness in the Utini Knights Guild. Very nice. After listening to your spoiler After listening to your spoiler cast, I had a question about the twins and the Zakul Empire in general. This stems from the CGI trailer, so there's nothing spoilery about my question, but I was wondering, if the Zakul Empire has never had contact with either the Empire or Republic, why do they look so similar aesthetically? The Sky Troopers have armor comparable to that of the Empire and Republic soldiers. The twins have lightsabers and fight similarly to the Jedi and Sith. They even dress similarly. Doesn't this imply influence of some kind, perhaps long ago in the past? Compared to the NJO storyline, which one's that? New Jedi Order? Must be.
Yeah.
Compared to the New Jedi Order storyline about the Yuzhong Vong, which was entirely alien and clearly had no technological nor aesthetic influence from anything in the known galaxy, the Zakul seems surprisingly similar to the Empire and Republic. I know it's not exactly an apples-to-apples comparison, but I still think the striking resemblance suggests past interactions. What do you think? How did we end up with an unknown culture and empire in the SWTOR universe that is so similar to our own?
Well, if you're familiar with Battletech, for example, if it's an offshoot group that goes off into the wilderness and disappears, and then that civilization evolves by itself, if it broke away at some point in the past, which is certainly a very plausible explanation for the Zakul Empire, then that would explain it perfectly. So that would be the easiest way to justify it.
When they say no contact, I haven't maybe followed really closely what all's going on. Have they specifically said that the Zakul aren't aware of what's going on in our section of the galaxy? Or is it just that we don't know of their existence? Like, is it neither one of us knows, or is it possible they may know about us, but they've been keeping themselves hidden? Yeah,
I think if what I'm understanding of where they are in the galaxy, it seems like, from what I understand, the anyone from the Empire or Republic who goes there never comes back. So it's quite possible that they're scooping up all kinds of intelligence on the Empire and the Republic, but it's just not it's not going back the other way.
It's a one-way street. Yeah, I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though. I guess this will all be revealed. But yeah, the fact that so similar does, and use lightsabers and the Force, does all kind of imply a pretty heavy connection at some time in the probably quite recent past.
Maybe they have a SETI program and they're picking up all the radio signals from the main part of the galaxy.
All right, let's wrap up there because, my God, this is a long show.
All right, let's see. Okay, that's the show. If you'd like to play with us in the Utini Knights Guild on the Republic side of the Harbinger server, or in our Guild on the Empire side, do a /C join Utini to join the Utini channel. Then ask for the quiz that lets us know you're a fan of the show. You can email questions and comments about the show to OotiniCast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter using @OotiniCast. You can find contact details for all of us on our website, OotiniCast.com, which includes how to subscribe to us using iTunes, Stitcher, and the rest. We record the show live every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Go to OotiniCast.com/live to find out how to join in. Our theme song is from Mevio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.mevio.com. That's MEVIO. And thank you to the chat room, and thank you to Turg and Kuze.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, and we'll see you next week.
All right, keep recording, guys. We didn't actually get to what Turg wanted to talk about. His rant. So, can I extend the invitation for both you two, to be on next week as well?
Business
we'll make
next
this
week.
2 weeks. Okay. What about you?
Actually, go ahead.
Oh, I'm probably okay.
All right.
Yeah,
cool.
I think that's probably fine. If you wanted, you could bring somebody like Pez. I don't know if Pez is still doing PvP, but like if we're going to talk about what they could do to incentivize PvP, I know he's heavily into Heroes of the Storm, and I don't know if that's taken away from it, so he might be able to give another perspective if we decide to do a PvP Starlight Digest.
Even if he's not PvPing right now, that would probably be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, he can explain why he's not. If he's not in SWTOR, He could explain what would bring him back, because that's sort of what I'm getting at, is what can bring more people there or incentivize people.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah, that works. All right, guys, thank you very, very much for watching and listening and contributing in the chat. Again, as always. We'll be back next week, and this weekend we're not recording any special shows.
Amazing.
All right. Have a good one, guys. May the Force serve you well.